For many years, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS, has been the proverbial bridge that connects the countries in the Eastern Caribbean. This organization, which is committed to regional integration, was launched on the 18th of June, 1981. This means that this year, this remarkable organization is celebrating its 42nd anniversary. And who better to tell us all about this than the Director General himself? Allow us to warmly welcome Dr. Didacus Jules, the Director General of the OECS, to Good Morning SKN. Good morning, Dr. Jules, and welcome.
Good morning.
Happy you could join us this morning.
Let's dive right into the conversation.
Sure.
I've heard of WISA. What is the OECS?
Well, the OECS is one of the most successful regional integration efforts, not just within the Caribbean, but globally.
Okay.
I often liken us to a mini EU without a Brexit.
Ah.
And essentially, it is about the creation of an economic union among the protocol states, but it also involves deepening functional cooperation across the chain of the Eastern Caribbean islands. So the associate members form part of that, is, for example, Martinique, Guadeloupe, the British Overseas Territories, while because of their constitutional status, they cannot be as deeply involved in the integration movement, for example, sharing the common currency. The economic union involves the free movement of people, goods, services. They cannot participate fully in those things, but we can, in fact, deepen relations in many ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The OECS, can you identify the member states of the OECS?
There are currently 11 member states of the OECS, but we are divided into full members as well as associate members. The associate members are the British Overseas Territories, Anguilla, BVI. Montserrat is a full member, although they are not an independent state. And we have Guadeloupe and Martinique. Soon to join. The decision was made since Hurricane Maria that Saint Martin, on the French side of Saint Martin, should become a member. But they asked for time out because of the need to recover and so on. So it is likely by November they will join the associate member states.
Okay.
And all of the independent Eastern Caribbean countries are full members. So we talk about Antigua and Barbuda. Well, as I said, Montserrat is part of that. Grenada, Dominica, and the Saints, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, and stkittsnevis.
This integration came about, if I am saying that correctly, in 1981, and that's before most of the Caribbean countries got their independence. Why do you think they came up with such an idea to develop such a prestigious organization?
Well, the origin of that goes way back, much further back to the time of the West Indies Federation, because you recall we had the West Indian Federation, and that fell apart. And Eric Williams' famous statement, 1 from 10 leaves 0.
Yes.
That led to Sir Arthur Lewis penning a document called The Agony of the Little Eight. And after the breakup of the Federation, there was this effort to determine what would be the ideal configuration of unity in the countries, because as small island states, when we were all part of the colonial British Empire, we were part of something larger and bigger. But the fear was that fragmentation into individual national countries, with the Jamaica becoming independent, followed by Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, it meant then that the islands would be left sort of isolated. And Sir Arthur, being the brilliant economist that he was, actually in The Agony of the Little Eight, pointed to the advantages of pooling resources together and the economies of scale and clout that could be achieved by uniting. So that was Sir Arthur, in a sense, was the intellectual author of the OECS integration movement.
Okay, good stuff.
And Dr. Jules, what are some of the benefits afforded to the citizens of the member states?
Well, right now, as I said, the economic union, we are moving as quickly as we can to accelerate regional integration to ensure that all of the requirements to have the economic union fully in place are there. We've already closed the loop on some of the aspects of that, like the free movement of people. A national of any of the OECS protocol, any OECS member state can in fact move to any other island without any restrictions, even without a passport. All you need is a government issued picture ID to show who you were. Now, I think the efficacy of that was really tested when Hurricane Maria hit, because if you recall, Dominica was the most devastated of the islands. And in fact, our estimate is that somewhere between 15 and 20,000 Dominicans were forced to move out of Dominica. So they were, in a sense, climate refugees. And because of the circumstances that led to their departure, they had to go to live with friends, relatives in other islands because their homes were totally devastated. So too was their documentation. So I often joke that, you know, Dominicans were allowed into the other islands on the basis of the free movement, not even with a picture ID, but by identification by their accent.
Yes,
you know?
Yes, indeed.
Because it's a very distinctive accent, as we all have.
Do we have the same privileges, Dr. Jules, in the associate states?
No, well, we don't. There's a slight difference between the British and the French territories, because remember, the French associate states are technically part of France. So there's a degree of relative autonomy that is not enjoyed in those states. So, for example, when we have ministerial meetings, if we say, for example, ministers of environment or ministers of education, you would have ministers, full ministers from these territories, including the British overseas territories. They have the ministerial system. In the French system, we look for the equivalent of that, but it is technically not at a ministerial level. The representation is somebody from the collectivity or the territorial council who handles the portfolio in the territory would be the representative. But we treat all our members in those meetings on a more or less equal footing.
Are there any, since we speak on regional integration, because I hear that coming up a lot in our conversation, would there be any talks to offer the same benefits as the protocol states?
No, well, technically, to be a protocol state, you would have to adhere to the requirements of the protocol. So, for example, all the protocol states use the EC dollar as their currency. So monetary policy is set by the Monetary Council, which is the governing body for the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And so one would have to adhere to those things in order to enjoy the benefits of full membership. But I must emphasize, though, when we have a meeting of the heads of government and matters are being discussed, all the heads, whether they are full or associate members, participate on an equal basis. If however, the matter has to come to a vote, then only the protocol member states can exercise that vote. Since my tenure there, I've never had the experience of us having to call a vote on a matter, because the heads move with a high degree of consensus.
I love that.
Indeed. And Dr. Jules, it is also important to differentiate between CARICOM member states and OECS member states. Those members belonging to CARICOM, can they benefit also by being a part of the OECS member states?
Well, let's put it this way. Practically all of the member states of the OECS are also members of CARICOM.
Part of CARICOM.
Now, for example, Martinique and Guadeloupe, so the British overseas territories are also part of CARICOM in an associate way as well. But Martinique and Guadeloupe are now seeking to get membership in CARICOM. There is not a distinction between them, because in many respects, remember when CARICOM was established, there was this notion of MDCs, so-called more developed territories, and LDCs. And the OECS countries were designated as LDCs. So there were certain protections given in the Treaty of Chaguaramas that protected the LDCs. Now, these things remain in place, because the thinking was, I mean, at the time, remember, Jamaica had bauxite, Guyana had gold, and you know, they were all up there. So there were this, Trinidad had oil. So they felt that there was definitely a very clear distinction between the so-called MDCs and the so-called LDCs, and special provisions had to be made to protect trade and so on with the LDCs. Since then, however, things have changed, and in some respects, countries like St. Kitts and Nevis, I was saying to your Prime Minister, St. Kitts and Nevis is actually the smallest independent state in the entire Western Hemisphere.
Nice.
But you are classified as a relatively higher income country, which cuts you out from receiving certain concessionary financing and so on.
Wow.
So the argument has been in CARICOM that does the MDC, LDC thing still hold if the per capita income of a place like St. Kitts and Nevis is much higher than, say, Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago, maybe? So there has to be some accommodation made. And since COVID and all of the disasters with the climate change and all the climatic changes we've experienced, the thinking there is that we have to move away from that classification, that way of classifying countries, and instead look at vulnerabilities and the issue of resilience. And let that be the judge of how viable a country is. Now, put in that context, as small states, you would see our disadvantage.
Dr. Jules, the theme, vision, integration, sustainability, progress, how relevant is the theme today?
I would say very timely and deeply relevant, because we are very clear in our minds, and all of that again is totally aligned to the revised Treaty of Basel, that regional integration is the key to success for these small states. We live in a world today where power matters, and as I often say, technically we have no friends. On the international scene, there are no friends but interests. And we have to bear that in mind, because we have to understand that states in the global environment are motivated by their self-interest, and it therefore behooves us to be very clear about what are our interests and how do we find the synergy of interests as small states, as an OECS, to exercise some voice and presence on the international stage and represent ourselves and our interests. The power of that is often seen by us in the Commission whenever there are significant votes happening, whether you're talking about the Expo happening in the Middle East, or votes for positions on the UN Security Council or other international bodies. People come to the OECS to secure their votes, just as they also go to CARICOM to get their votes. But they know that coming to the OECS is a fairly solid block of at least 6 votes, and that matters.
I'm gonna go. I have to ask this. With what you just said, it seems like we're being used. Am I correct to assume?
No, I wouldn't say we're being used. I just think we're being wooed. But we need to know what is our best interest.
Okay.
And determine what do we get out of these arrangements.
Understood. So let's talk about the length of time, Dr. Jules, that you have been acting as the Director General.
Well, I'm in my 9th year.
Congratulations.
Of office. Yeah.
Oh, nice. What tell us, what are some of the things that you are working towards?
Well, in the past, the OECS Commission planned on an annual basis. So we did an annual work plan and budget that was submitted for the approval of heads. As of 2 years ago, we decided to do triennium planning. So we planned for 3 years in a row.
Okay.
And beyond that, now we are looking at a 6-year period, so 2 trienniums. And we've set certain strategic priorities for these trienniums. The first, the most important of which is deepening regional integration and then building resilience, a part of that strategic mix. So by establishing these priorities, we ensure that we pretty much touch on the most essential things that need to be done during that period. And because it is spread over a triennium, it is fully aligned to a long view of the road ahead. It's highly significant that we're here in St. Kitts and Nevis at this time. Because as you know, the 18th of June is the date of formation, both of the signing of the Treaty of Basel as well as the revised Treaty of Basel. And here we are again in Basel at a time when the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis is taking on the chair. And thankfully, I believe the only living legend of the OECS is still here with us in stkittsnevis, Kennedy Simmons.
Yes.
Right? So we have to pay special tribute to him at this time.
Nice.
And it's a huge opportunity for us. We've had meetings with Prime Minister Drew. He himself has already established, and that is very impressive, 3 or 4 critical priorities for the year term that he has as chairman.
Nice.
And these are well aligned to the strategic priorities that I spoke about earlier.
Wow.
So he will be speaking about, I won't steal his thunder, he will be speaking about that at the opening.
Okay.
There are a number of activities we have. We've been here since Monday.
Okay.
And we've been doing what we call OECS in the classroom. These are school tours,
Right.
talking at the primary school level, talking especially to grades 5 and 6 about the OECS integration effort. And it's been really quite stimulating for us because the young people of the students at that level seem to be reasonably well informed about the OECS and CARICOM, although there's sometimes what we detect is a sort of lack of understanding of the distinction between OECS and CARICOM. But that's understandable at that age. But more importantly, our whole purpose in that is to ensure that the idea of OECS gets embedded in the education system. We've developed an online workbook on OECS integration. We intend to print copies and to get that out to the schools. They have the PDF versions that they can also print. And we are working on a whole, what we call a digital learning ecosystem, so that online you would have all the resources needed at all levels of education, including for professional development. We are about to sign an agreement with Coursera that would give us access. Right now, there are 50,000 people in the OECS who are registered on Coursera doing different courses.
Yes.
But the agreement the partnership we're going into would make it a society-wide agreement that we can have literally anyone in the OECS who wants to do courses, whether degree level courses or short professional courses or skills training courses online.
I like that.
Awesome. And speaking of the celebration, personally, how can the general public join in on the celebration?
Well, I think it is we have Colors Day on the 16th of June.
That's tomorrow.
Yes, that's tomorrow. So we're calling on workplaces, people to wear the OECS colors.
Okay.
And be as creative as you want with that coloring of the place.
Looking forward to the picture.
Yeah, paint the place OECS.
Okay.
On the 17th, we have a fun walk, which I understand is going to be a 4-mile walk. Okay. So and I understand St. Kitts is a place where these health walks get huge subscribe to.
Yes.
So we're looking forward to that. I did suggest something that I've wanted to do for many years now with these marathons that we do sometimes, especially in relation to the blind. I would like to see us do a walk in solidarity with the blind. Let's say it's a 2K walk.
Okay.
People walk in pairs.
Yes.
With one person blindfolded for half of the walk and switch the blindfold for the other half. So it'd be like walking 1K in my eyes. Okay. I think that would give you a really experiential sense.
Serious experience. Dr. Jules.
So, while there are these activities that we traditionally do, but again, it comes to the point about thinking differently. How do we make these experiences mean more and feel more to people so that they get a better sense of the cause that it represents?
Very well said.
I recently did one of those, Dr. Jules, and let me tell you, I'm grateful for my sight, and I admonish persons to take care of their sight because I had a guide, but it was tough navigating. I almost walked into a car. I was too close to the wall. The sidewalks was rough when I was using the cane. So I definitely understand. So that's a great initiative, and I hope that it does come into fruition for our next walk.
Yeah,
of course.
What words would you like to leave with the citizens of the OECS member states as we close?
Make use of it. Ownership. The OECS belongs to you.